The Treasury's outlined 3 areas where they think the economy would be hit. One of the 3 I agree with. There will be some sort of uncertainty impact. Second, they've said there will be a financial impact, but there you can actually turn the Treasury's arguments on their head. They said, for instance, the pound could be down 12 to 15%. When the Chancellor was talking about the March of the Makers a couple of years ago, he said that the fall in the pound would actually help exporters. And the fall in the pound under the Treasury's worst case today would basically bring it down to a level where a couple of years ago the Chancellor said that was good for the economy. And the third point of the Treasury is their assumptions about the so-called transition effect. They suggest that leaving the EU, embracing Brexit, means that we will both keep the regulations and keep up high tariff barriers. So I think you can sort of question that significantly. So coming back to your point, I agree with the fact that there might be some temporary short-term impact, but I think the Treasury's analysis is far too pessimistic.
Right, you think it's too pessimistic, but you do agree that there would be a short-term shock. And the question is, if you can't quantify it and you don't know how long that short-term shock will last, you can see why people will be voting to stay in.
No, you can quantify it and you can actually make assumptions. I did a detailed analysis a couple of years ago, also had independent forecasters look at it. And what we found was, with a Brexit scenario, cutting tariff barriers, becoming very global, and I was looking at the London economy, Brexit added 900,000 jobs to the London economy over 2 business cycles, compared to an addition of 200,000 jobs over remaining in an unreformed EU. So
right, but why
I've actually
think...
done the analysis in some detail.
Right, but why do you think you know better than the amassed ranks of Treasury mandarins? You may know better, but what is the evidence that you do?
Well, what I'm saying is that in every economic debate, there's 2 sides to the story. And of the 3 points that the Treasury has assumed today, I agree with one of their assumptions about the uncertainty effect. I would actually say the financial effect actually would be positive for the economy. A weaker pound in a low inflation environment would actually allow interest rates to remain low. The Bank of England would inject liquidity. That's positive. Where I would disagree with the Treasury is the assumptions they've made about the likely policy scenario outside in terms of tariffs and regulations. But coming back to your question, ahead of the Black Wednesday back in 1992, I took a very different view then, and then people criticised my view. Then I said the pound would leave the ERM. If it left the ERM, it would be good news for the economy. At that time, the Treasury said if the pound left the ERM, inflation would rise, interest rates would rise, the economy would shrink. So, and of course, the opposite happened. So I'm not afraid to actually have a different view, but I can understand where the Treasury is coming from in some respects, that there would be a shock. But what I would argue about is that I think they're far too pessimistic and they've made some unrealistic assumptions.